Hello everyone, this is my interactive presentation assignment supporting communication and language development. This is my introduction. The age group that I am focusing my presentation on is 5-year-olds, which are preschoolers, and the ELF domain that I am focusing on is language and literacy. Language is socially constructed. I think it's important for preschoolers to socially interact with the young children to learn new ways to communicate through the use of language, gestures, and literacy. I think it's also important to allow preschoolers and encourage preschoolers to socialize so they don't have trouble socializing as they get older. Language skills and development. Basics of language. There's different types, forms of communication in young children. Nonverbal communication comes in ways such as pointing gestures and facial expressions, usually occurring in the first month, last years of birth. The society and culture in which a child lives within will determine the meaning of words and when and where to use different words. Language development is also supported by children and adult interaction using words. This is something that I said in the beginning, where lack of social interaction can cause difficult time learning it later in life or not be able to learn it at all. Typical stages of language and communication development are from birth to 5-year-olds. So some few examples for birth to 1-year-old are alert to sounds. By age 10 months, it reaches for objects, says one or two words like mama, dada, hi, and bye. For 2 to 3-year-olds, the uses words combinations often but may occasionally repeat some words or phrases like baby, baby sit down, or I want juice. Speech is becoming clearer but may not be understandable to unfamiliar listeners or to people who do not know your child. For 5-year-olds, they produce grammatically correct sentences. Sentences are longer and more complex. They follow simple directions and rules to play games. They recognize and names 10 or more letters and can usually write their own name. Uses more words for time like yesterday and tomorrow. And imitates reading and writing from left to right while acknowledging book names, characters, and scenarios. So these are the connections that I found to the ELOF domains, which I'm focusing on, the language and communication. Some subdomains that I found were the attending and understanding, which for this one, the indicator was showing ongoing connections to a conversation, group discussions, or presentations. This is the children show acknowledgement of complex comments or questions, is able to attend to longer multi-turn conversations, either spoken or signed. Another subdomain that I found was vocabulary. And one of the indicators that I found regarding this was identify shared characteristics among people, places, things, or actions, such as identifying that both cats and dogs are furry and have 4 legs. Another one that I found was subdomain communicating and speaking. The indicator was can produce and organize multiple sentences on a topic. For the domain literacy subdomain that I found was the first one. I can't really pronounce. And the indicator provides one or more words that rhyme with a single given target, such as what rhymes with log. Another one subdomain is print and alphabetic knowledge, which is understand that written words are made up of a group of individual letters. Lastly, the subdomain that I found was the comprehension and text structure. And this identifies characters, the main events in books and stories. The first strategy that I found for supporting language development is conversation during play. I believe conversation during play is a great way for children to build language because it's natural, meaningful, and interactive, and it's just happening during school time. And this just helps build vocabulary, encourage back and forth communication, expands the use of complex sentences, stronger storytelling and narrative skills, social language. This strategy will help children engage in longer, multi-turn conversations with adults and children, using more vocabulary words to express themselves. Between 3 to 5 years, children develop communication skills such as varying how much information they give, depending on what they are talking about and whom they are talking about. It also meets ELOF's indicators by describing events in order with specific details such as who was in it, what they were doing, names, environment, and what type of event it was. The first strategy for supporting language and literacy development is interactive storytelling. Interactive storytelling is an important strategy for supporting language and literacy development because it actively engages their thinking, language, and imagination through reading. They connect words to actions and emotions, more detailed language when explaining the story, describe characters and settings, answer questions like what just happened or what did the character do. I believe these are very important because I've used this before with my 5-year-old who has speech therapy. I always intended to include reading at night before bed because it kind of helped him repeat after me as I was reading, and it just encouraged him to feel confident to do so. Another strategy to support language development is imitation. I believe imitation at this age is important to support language development because it does just not just mean copying others, like what they're doing, what they're saying, but to find, expand, and experiment with language in meaningful ways. And this includes learning more advanced sounds and vocabulary, develop use of tone when conversating. This could help when a child is trying to express their emotions, and they can use tones for like when they're feeling angry, sad, happy, nervous, excited. It also helps with pronunciation and fluency, and increase of sounds to develop into language patterns. According to lesson 3, it stated that interaction and language growth continued. Imitation is also important during the infant stage because they start to observe, imitate, or copy facial expressions. This strategy can also be used to help the language development in 5-year-olds. And then there's a quote I got from that lesson, and it says, modeling these communication tools will not only help children focus on what we are talking about, but will also help them learn to use these tools themselves as they continue to build their communication skills and vocabulary. I decided to use this room tip from lesson 3, communicating and speaking, as connection to my strategies from the previous slides because it gives ideas on how to build communication skills with young children. It informed my understanding on how to communicate clear enough with a 5-year-old so I'm able to understand the vocabulary and encourage storytelling. And this one is used during bedtime, and in this one they're reflecting on the child's day, asking the child if he or she got dressed or ate breakfast first. And this is a really good way of getting them to conversate with someone because you're giving them the confidence to talk about themselves and make them feel valued and understood and heard. Another connection to my course resources is this image from, I believe it was lesson 3, Basics of Language, where conversation during play starts at a very young age, and it is important to begin conversating from birth to 5-year-olds to 5 years old. According to the lesson 3, Basics in Language, most children will learn to speak at least one language at the age of 3 and up. I think this goes on a lot about kids who have parents that speak two different languages. And for example, in my life, my family speaks Spanish, and it's my first language, and I'm still learning English as well. And we are able to implement these two languages into my son's life, and it's a way of encouraging him to have conversations in both languages with my parents and his grandparents and me and my husband. Lastly, throughout this presentation, we learned the relation between typical stages of language and literacy development to the domains of the ELOF. We were able to develop strategies to use to support these developments. Imitation, storytelling, and conversation during play are suggested to encourage young children to hold long and meaningful conversations with other children or adults. This will also develop vocabulary through speaking and conversation. The strategies and domains together will help me find more ways to develop conversation with my students when they need to express their emotions, experiences, and interests. I will be able to respond effectively by encouraging use of vocabulary, storytelling, and even use of imitation.